entrepreneurship is a gene that exists in about 1 in 10 people. And there's some pseudoscience behind this, by the way. The idea that 10% of the human population experiences dopamine and serotonin differently. They experience it in the pursuit of a goal instead of in the accomplishment of a goal. But 90% of the population is not like that. 90% of the population are more equipped to be employees. And that's not a pejorative, by the way. An employee is not a pejorative. There's nothing wrong with it. But it means that we have to learn how to interface with those folks. And that's the key to delegation. The key to delegation is understanding people. It's empathy. And people want to contribute. They want to make a meaningful impact.
Hello and welcome to the Perpetual Traffic podcast.
The show where we talk about business, marketing, and soft serve OSHA safety protocols.
I'm Ralph Burns, the founder of Tier 11.
And I'm Kasim, the co-founder of the Driven Mastermind.
We still haven't been able to get this intro right. Hopefully Kevin, our editor, will make it sound better than it actually
He'll chop it up. Yeah.
He'll chop it up. You always say, like, yeah, he's the one who sounds smart-ish. Well, today is a sad day, I think, in Perpetual Traffic history. And obviously, you, Kasim, Aslam, have been a huge part of the success in the growth of this little podcast here called Perpetual Traffic. And we don't always talk about traffic. We usually talk about business, marketing, sales. The name itself is not really even descriptive of what it's done, matching all of your philosophical takes, rants, conspiracy theories, philosophies. It's become more than just a traffic show. And I have been honored to have you as my co-host for however many years. It seems like it's been like longer than it really actually has. It's probably been about like 3 years. And the cool thing is that when you first started, you were just little Kasim Aslam, and now you're like this big celebrity. You know, you're running this powerful mastermind. Get the hair is like just continue to get to flow. There's no longer like, you know, the young Kasim talking about, I think, like Google Shopping was the first episode. We'll link in the show notes to that first episode when we first actually sort of met each other. And it's launched hundreds of podcasts since then. But you are announcing today something that I think will affect our listeners. So I'm going to shoot it over to you in your own words. But as like I said, it's a sad day, but it's a happy day in a lot of respects. So tell the PT listener what's going to be happening over the course of the next week or so.
Not the easiest thing I've ever had to do on the podcast. And I honestly didn't realize it was going to be this difficult until right this very moment. But I've decided to bow out as the co-host of Perpetual Traffic. I still plan on coming back, I hope, every now and again, dipping in and out as a guest and a buddy, and hopefully bringing whatever weird and rare and unique and very conspiratorial insights that I happen to have. But I want to make sure that I'm always doing everything that I commit to justice. And if I'm being exceedingly honest, Ralph, I think that some of my career pursuits have inhibited my ability to really focus. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't want to ever put you in a position where you feel like you have somebody who's phoning it in. And I will say here on air, recorded, subpoenaable, that this is the show that put me on the map, man. You giving me this was a really big deal. And I've told you before, but I don't know that I've ever told you on a recorded episode. I'm so grateful for the shot that you gave me. And this has been a wild ride. There's so much that I wouldn't have right now. I don't know if I would have driven if it weren't for Perpetual Traffic. You know, like it was the lead domino for so many things, and me being just seen by others and heard by others and been allowed the platform. And what a blessing that is. And I think if you're listening to this, that's a lesson that I'd love to impart to everybody, which is put yourself out there just a little bit. You know, like your Ralph Burns might be waiting in the wings to just hear what you have to say. And you know what? That person I like what they have to say, and maybe there's more there. And I do have the personality that seeks attention, and I know that's actually served me for the most part. That's backfired too. But not everybody has that personality. But if it's something that you can cultivate even just a little bit, um, in today's day and age where attention is a currency unto itself, the attention that I've received from this show has been massively impactful. And even more than that, the connections that I've earned or, been granted from the show have been unbelievable. It's such a door opener. So super grateful to you, bro. Hope that I get to keep sneaking in and out and having the luxury of staying in the Perpetual Traffic umbrella. I'm going to stay in that Telegram thread because that thing's amazing. Which, by the way, if you haven't joined, you have to go to perpetualtraffic.com/telegram. There's some unbelievable people in there, and the conversations that they're having, dude, they go so far afield. Like it's just really interesting. It's like its own little mastermind. So anyway, that was awkward and rambly, but that was the best I can do. I should have prepared something. I realize now.
Well, you're speaking from the heart. I think we've talked about this for some time. This isn't a decision that you came to lightly, and I do think that the massive life event that happened, which was selling your business, made you realize that maybe there are more things out there than just marketing that are beyond that. Obviously, maintaining your CEO position with that company, but you're also looking towards other things as like the next stage of your career. And I totally get it. And we've had a lot of conversations around this. And I always sort of joke like, Kasim's too big for Perpetual Traffic right now, which is, it's just kind of funny to think about it. But I mean, yes, we gave you, or I gave you, I suppose. It used to be we, like me and Ryan Dice. Now it's me. I kicked him to the curb, just give him a bunch of money. But everyone ended up happy. But, you gave yourself this shot, like you earned it. And I think all we did is just, open that door. And if this podcast played a small role in helping develop you as an individual and also give you a gateway to the next sort of stage of your career, like for me, that's tremendously satisfying because I feel like my job in life is not necessarily to self-aggrandize, but is to help others achieve their objectives. And that gives me more pleasure than it does like when I achieve my objectives. Like when I achieve a goal, I'm like, all right, next, classic entrepreneur. But like to see your development and to see how you've like become an amazing frontman to Driven, an amazing co-host who has very different, like our backgrounds couldn't be more different. Like set aside like the age thing, and I'm only like 2 years older than you, but times a few multipliers. The point is like we are very different individuals, and I think this show is the highlight of my week. And my wife would be pissed at me saying that because I do meet with her every morning. Those are the highlight of my days. But like my work day, 100%. And we were just talking about this before we hit record. It's like so much of, we probably have 300 hours of me and you just bullshitting prior to hitting record, which has been so valuable, I think, for both of us. Like we've gone through some massive upheavals and changes. I chose not to sell my business. You chose to sell your business. We talk about personal stuff. We talk about your decisions of, going into Driven. I talk about like what we're trying to do. We like the whole John Moran thing between me and you is like a huge deal, and that navigated and, really to everyone's benefit, and it all worked out in the end. Like we've talked about so much stuff, not to mention like doing a podcast episode every now and then.
That's what's funny.
So
is we've done more non-podcast episodes. If the Perpetual Traffic listener knew how much time went into, every minute of actual listening time is probably 10 or 15 minutes of me and Ralph just bullshitting.
And Kevin has threatened, our producer has threatened to take a lot of that and turn it into episodes, which he has done. And maybe we'll actually do that sort of like a one of the episodes, like post your final episode, which might be next week. We'll record together, but um, this is only this is not goodbye. It's not farewell, right? It's like it's farewell for now, but you're going to stay in the Telegram thread, which is cool. I think that's great because it is like its own little mastermind in there. And if you haven't joined, once again, perpetualtraffic.com/Telegram. Join, for crying out loud. It's easy. Like, we're in there. And then we're actually bringing in a lot of our experts, but having you in there, and then hopefully you can pop back in. I know there's a couple of episodes that we have scheduled out a month or two from now that you're going to come back on. So you're going to be the occasional sort of guest, which I welcome and look forward to. But I don't even know how many years it's been. I probably should have gone back and looked. I think it's been about 3 years. It's been a tremendous 3 years. And I think you were always trying to, fill the shoes of like the Molly Pittmans of the world, which you have, and then some. And then you've been
Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever
amazing
fill my
co-host.
shoes.
Yeah, well, I guess that's for the listener to decide. But I don't know as if it's necessarily, filling shoes. It's being your own person and developing into the person that you become today. And it's great to see that development. And like I said, we're going to be obviously in contact on a regular basis every week, as a matter of fact, through Driven, and then any other ventures that we choose to do in the future. But this is a launching off point for you. And I think it's great that, you're going to be launching sort of the next phase of your career, whether that's post Solutions 8 at some point in time. There's bigger things out there for you in your future. And it's going to be awesome to have played a role in that, but also, continue to help each other as friends and come back on here, as a special guest every now and then. So hopefully it'll be more frequent than infrequent, but we'll sort of figure that out as we go along. So
yeah, we've got one of my favorite authors coming on the show. I don't know if we should tease his name or not, but I'd love to dip in and out for stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, the door's always open. The perpetual traffic door never closes for you. But yeah, so there's the big announcement here today. Sad on one hand, happy on the other. And I think a big part of this is some of the things that we're actually talking about here right now. You've actually built an agency where you don't have to be in the day-to-day, and so you can look to other ways in which to advance your career. And you did a talk on this at Driven, which was all about delegation. And for me, like, this is the thing for me. And I think when you start to delegate, you then open up other avenues in your career, and you've been able to do this. And this is one of the reasons why, you're taking a pivot and you're maybe moving on to other things aside from just being known as a marketing and a traffic guy, which you'll always sort of be known for, but like more so delegation and having the right types of people doing the work for you has given you the brain space in order to sort of figure out like, what's my next stage? And I think everyone should be doing this all the time. It's like we all, as humans, like, we need to constantly evolve and pursue other activities outside of just the things outside of our comfort zone. And you've been able to do that. And I think delegation has been the key to it. So maybe we can even roll into that presentation here and just to give, because I know the folks that we are talking to in the Telegram channel struggle with this mightily because they think that they have to do everything, when in fact that's the key to just sort of standing still. You get to a certain level of success, but at a certain point you have to get other people to do the work, and it's letting go of the rope, so to speak. So yeah, delegation is a big part of it, and I think it's one of the reasons why you're able to move on from what we're doing right here.
Yeah, I love people. And that sounds like a weird way to start, but I think that's actually the frame that you have to move into. There's a I'm going to ask everybody who's listening to just suspend disbelief for me for a moment, because as business owners or executives or C-levels, even middle managers, anybody who's ever had to manage people, we move into this paradigm of, if you want something done, do it yourself. It's so hard to find good help. Um, there are no good people out there. People are lazy, et cetera, et cetera. And I hear it all the time. And I know why people feel that way too. Incidentally, I'm not here to gaslight you. Like, you've had bad employees, you've had bad experiences. People
Yeah.
have let you down. And that's going to continue to happen. And I think that that's not the rule. I think that's actually the exception. I think that people are extraordinary. They're unbelievable. And what they're capable of is unbelievable. And interestingly, and this is the thing that I think the entrepreneurs and the executives need to integrate, which is, not everybody's like you. Entrepreneurship is a gene that exists in about 1 in 10 people. And there's some pseudoscience behind this, by the way. Like the idea that 10% of the human population experiences dopamine and serotonin differently. They experience it in the pursuit of a goal instead of in the accomplishment of a goal, which is something you just referenced earlier, Ralph. But 90% of the population is not like that. 90% of the population are more equipped to be employees. And that's not a pejorative, by the way. An employee is not a pejorative. There's nothing wrong with it. But it means that we have to learn how to interface with those folks. And that's the key to delegation. The key to delegation is understanding people. It's empathy. And people want to contribute. They want to make a meaningful impact. And to give you some context, I've built entire businesses on the backs of people that are so much smarter than me. That's the interesting thing. This isn't self-deprecation at all, what I'm about to say. I'm so much more successful than I deserve to be based solely on my own personal merits. Like, I see it in people's eyes when they meet me after, like, they've heard the podcast, or seen my YouTube channel, and they meet me in person, and they're just expecting like wizardry. And they're like, oh God, I'm not only am I not impressed, but I'm smarter than you. Like, how are you, how have you made more money than me? How have you built a bigger business? And the thing is I'll always outrun everybody. I'll outrun any person, because I've got 100 horses on the track and you've got one. You've got you. And even when you do think you're delegating, you're not really delegating. Effective delegation isn't putting people on an assembly line and watching them. That's micromanagement. Delegation, I have a concept that I call the black box. And what you want to do is you want to move yourself into the black box of delegation, where you tell somebody, hey, here's what I want to accomplish. This is the end goal. This is the vision. This is the result. This is the output. So that's the latter side of the box. That's the end of the timeline. And then on the opposite end of the box, the beginning is, here are the resources available to you. This is how much money I'm willing to spend. These are the other, staff that you can rope in, freelancers that you have, content that we have available, other stuff that we've built, software, whatever, resources. And sometimes, by the way, resources can be opaque. You can even say, and, incidentally, go figure out what you need. And between the beginning and the end, I do not care. And that's the part that's hard, is so many business owners and entrepreneurs get so obsessive with the nuts and bolts of how things are being executed, and they pull themselves into the weeds without realizing they're doing it. I built what I think, Ralph, and I'd love for somebody to challenge me on this, not in a combative way, but I've never been corrected here. I think I built the largest Google Ads agency in the world. Google Ads dedicated. Like, there's a bunch of really big agencies out there, right? Like, massive agencies, but we were the largest agency dedicated only to Google Ads. And I built it, and I'd never run a Google ad campaign start to finish, for anybody but myself. Like, I've tinkered with Google Ads the way that any business owner has, but I've never actually done it as a service. And that's such an important paradigm to assume. Entrepreneurship's not fulfillment. You're not supposed to do the job. If you own a bakery, you're not supposed to be the baker. And the way to do that is through delegation. The prerequisite to delegation is having really amazing people, but that's not hard either, right? Pay the high water mark, treat people really well. I have a whole hiring video on YouTube that we can drop in the show notes that shows you how I hire. But once you have awesome people,
Mhm.
you have to put them in a position to be awesome. And that also means autonomy. Like, dude, how long would you last if somebody's looking over your shoulder saying, oh, no, do it this way. Oh, no, do it that way. Oh, tweak this. Oh, tweak that. It's soul sucking. So if
Yeah.
you give really smart people some autonomy and the ability to execute on something that's meaningful, like, just get out of their way. And we can talk about some of the ultra specifics behind delegation, but I just wanted to offer the framing first. Like, this is the frame that we have to assume in order to delegate effectively. And I have built, at this point in my life, I'm closing in on a dozen profitable businesses. We've all heard what is it? 80% of all businesses fail in the first 2 years. And then of that, 80% of those fail in the first 5 years. And man, I just can't miss. I've got a recruiting agency and a financial services agency, and I've got Solutions Aid, obviously, and a Montessori agency, and I built a real estate agency and a mastermind. And like, it's not because I'm smart. That's the thing that I really want to express. It's that I go find really smart people, and then I say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" And now that I have money, it's easier, right? Because I can actually afford. I can afford runway with those really smart people. Um, but I didn't need that to get started. I just needed a little bit of grit. So I'm going to pause there. That got a little ranty, but hopefully valuable. You tell me what you think.
I think the biggest challenge for business owners, or just, I wouldn't even say business owners, I would just say anybody in general who is in a position where they could be delegating, is an ego issue.
Mm-hmm.
It is just letting go of the fact that you're the only one that can do it. And it was very early on, I started to figure this out, that you actually need help. Like, to get to, like, you can be a solopreneur, and you can, I think we've had this conversation here on this show, is that there are certain people that just want lifestyle businesses, and that's it. And they're self-actualized, and they're happy with that. And I always kind of use my brother as an example. Like, he's a sales guy for Fidelity. Like, he's happy doing that. He doesn't want to become a manager. Like, he's never going to delegate anything.
Mm.
And that's okay too. So delegation is where you are in life. We're not talking about that individual here, but there may be some people that are talking about that. So I'm like, I realize that is not me. I'd probably live about 10 years longer, I would imagine. Probably have less gray hair and probably less heart issues. My brother doesn't have any of those things because he's happy being that guy, like a worker, and perfectly fine. He's got a great life and he's happy with that. And that's cool. And I almost wish in a lot of ways I could be that way. If you are not that person, if you are a type A where you constantly are driving and you're looking for something bigger and you want to have more impact and you want to have global reach, you want to, in our case, revolutionize an industry, which is what we are aiming to do inside Tier 11. But then there's all kinds of other projects that I want to do that have influence, that have impact on the world. Delegation is the key to all that, because you can't do it like one to many. Yes, works to a certain degree, but at a certain point, you need many to many. As opposed to you being the one, is to delegate. You have to let go of control, and you have to, the old expression is like, let go of the rope. And that's a scary thing for a lot of folks to come to terms with, is because they think that the only person who can get the shit done is them. And, if I want to get a job done right, I got to do it myself. My dad used to say that. It's like I broke out of that. It's like money is the root of all evil. My dad said that. Like, I'm breaking away from all of these things. I loved my father, but he was an artist. He never delegated. Like, it was a one-man show. My mother was a teacher. It's like I have all these self-limiting beliefs from my parents, which I broke away from until I met my wife 27, 28 years ago. Point is like, that was transformative to me because she looked at things differently. And it came back to, no, you actually are not the one that, in order to get things done, you got to do it yourself. In order to get things done on scale, get people that are better than you to do it for you and are very happy doing it. And learn how to lead and manage and coach and teach, and all those sort of secondary skills, which has nothing to do with all the sort of levels of delegation. But I think like that unto itself is like a key concept here that I think you've mastered. And I think it is true. If you go back to the solutions, like you built this great Google Ads agency, but you've never run a Google ad. It's like, oh my God, well, is he either a fraud or is he a fucking genius? I would go with the latter.
Maybe a little of both.
a little both.
But a fraudulent genius.
Slightly.
You know, the thing about it is I never lied. I never told anybody like, oh, I'm the god of
you
Google.
Never told anybody.
Yeah, I was just like, hey, here's what my team learned. Here's what we're figuring out. And the thing that was interesting about that too is when you delegate, you always have fresh eyes. I was a better communicator when it came to Google Ads because I never spent it was 12 hours to solve one problem that somebody else had to that expenditure was theirs. And as soon as you've been there, whenever you live in the weeds, you make so many assumptions because you don't realize how much you know. I didn't have those assumptions to make because I'd have to come in fresh and be like, all right, tell me what we figured out. And now I get to build roots and I get to explain it to people in the way that it had to be explained to me. And I love that about delegation. I love that it's episodic. It's like binge watching your favorite show. You know, you check in and you're like, hey, where are we? What's going on? And they give you the update and you're like, all right, cool. This is the direction that I'd like to see this heading, or here's a minor tweak that I'm going to offer. And by the way, the older I get and the more successful I get, the less I tweak. I just real recently, we launched a business that it's been profitable in the first 90 days, which is really funny, Ralph, to say because it actually took us a year to get to this concept, and it's been massively unprofitable. And so it's so fun to see just how I can posture if I want to. That said, we launched this business. It's the recruiting business. And the person who built the business for me is one of my favorite humans in the world, and he's phenomenally brilliant. But he and I don't see things the same way. Thank God.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the funnel. I didn't like the visuals. I didn't like the logo. I didn't like any of it. And I was wrong. And I was just like, dude, let's go to market. Like you're a smart, industrious, capable, creative human. And just because you and I don't have the same aesthetic taste, who gives a shit? You know, like why? Yeah. And so I don't know many entrepreneurs that would go to market with a business that has a logo they don't like. You know, like they're like, oh, I got to get this right. It has to resonate with. Does it really? Does it have to resonate with you?
Is it
like? Are you?
Is it that important?
Yes. Why are you the litmus test too? Why is your opinion all that valid here? I mean, we're talking about a gentleman that he has a literal degree in this. This is what creative design or whatever it is he went to school. I don't know anything. So, getting comfortable with letting go, not having ownership, it's hard. It's actually really uncomfortable. But then on the other end of it, it's the reason I can be the CEO of Solutions 8 right now. I could be the CEO for the rest of my life and also do whatever I want to do because I've built these people and all I need to do is lead. And man, I hope nobody minds me saying this. I'm good at it. I'm good at defining vision. I'm good at defining direction. I'm good at saying, hey, here's what I think we need to do and where we need to go and how we need to do it. And then I'm good at finding the people that can execute on those things. But you know what I'm not good at? Executing on those things. But so if I tried, like I would be the one constantly derailing everything. And learning how to delegate has been, I think it's been the second most impactful skill set I've ever cultivated as an entrepreneur. The first most impactful skill set is, I don't want to say hiring because that feels myopic in scope, but I'll say finding and cultivating talent. And those two things are kissing cousins. You can you can be really good at finding and cultivating talent and not good at delegating. You can be really good at delegating and not good at finding and cultivating talent. But if you can do those two, like, man, gosh, are they just so symbiotic? It's the most important thing I do all day. It's just finding good people.
Yeah. It's 1A, 1B, pick them as far as like which one's 1A, which one's 1B, because they don't happen. The delegations thing doesn't happen unless you actually have those people. And, hiring, which we've talked about here on the show, we'll probably have plenty of episodes on this in the future because it's such the key. I did a talk last week for an agency group, and they were all, what's the key to scaling from like 6 figures to 7 figures? Like a lot of that sort of talk. And I did my talk, and 3 other people had already talked about it, like the importance of hiring. So I didn't feel like I was all that unique. I think our process is unique, and it's changed over time. But without that process, you can't possibly delegate. You can't possibly get results through others. That's really what we're talking about here, is just getting results through others, and then getting the hell out of the way. We just redid our website, so like my my son, who is like used to do our social media, like I did a thing in one of the local universities this week. He's like, Dad, I had no idea you guys redid your website. And quite honestly, I don't really like it. I don't love it. I like it. It's too wordy. It's all of these things. But you know what? Here was my instruction. We need a new website. We need it in line with the way that we're thinking right now. I don't need it to be perfect. I just want it to be done by X date. And that doesn't mean we're going to be sloppy. But nobody showed me any color schemes. Nobody showed me anything. And I entrusted, the one person that is responsible for that to get it done and get it out the door. And I could have, if I was a real impediment to delegation, micromanaged every aspect of it, but I didn't. And it's out the door. It's producing leads. It's probably producing better leads and articulating our message better than it has. It doesn't need to be improved. Absolutely. It's a first iteration. But like, I wouldn't have been able to do that 10 years ago. Not a chance. Not a chance. I would have, fussed over every little detail. It's like, let it go. I mean, I know, Sheryl Sandberg made this statement, done is better than perfect. Like everybody starts to use it now. But that's not an excuse to be sloppy. Sure. That just means like you do need to ship. If you feel like you have, I think it's Reed Hastings actually said this, is if you've shipped and you're like, you don't have some kind of reservation on something going wrong, that means that you have shipped too late. And that's the key to delegation, is that you're not going to get everything absolutely perfect. And this is like that perfection mindset of an entrepreneur. Like if you have that, you have to overcome that, because with delegation and with scale and with influence and with building something that you want to build that you think is going to be great, comes with an element of trusting others and not worrying about every single tiny little detail and putting yourself out there. And like on this thing that we did this past week, it was on Tuesday of this past week, we had all these college kids like at Suffolk University critique like what we're doing. And they picked out all these things on the site. I'm like, oh my God. But it's like, I wasn't embarrassed. I'm like, I shipped. You know what I mean? I got it done. My team got it done. I didn't do it. I got the outcome. And I think I said this yesterday in our driven call. It's like, I put my to-do list is outcomes. It's not to-dos. It's like, and then I delegate that to the right person that I feel is going to do it, and then empower them, give them the resources in order to get it done. And that's how we ship. That's how we produce. And I think that's taken years to refine it. And I've still got a long way to go. But I think that's the key to scale. It's the key to building a business, is entrusting other people. And it's a hard thing to do. And I've met a lot of people in our mastermind, because there are a lot of folks that are sort of on that cusp of like doing it. They're like, I still want to do this and I want to touch that. And I'm like, guy, like figure out your activity that is the most high impact activity that you're doing right now that you shouldn't be doing, and get somebody to do it. And that's delegation.
You said something on the driven call that I really appreciated. And it's so funny because here I am talking about delegation, pretending to be an expert. And yet I'm leading a mastermind where we had just decided to start doing an implementation day. So, you got the 2 days of the mastermind and you learn so much and it's overwhelming, and we bring in the smartest people in the world, and you just get like, just drowned in value. And it's all stuff. It's all actionable. And then you go home and you don't do any of it. And so our solution was to add a third day where, we do conference rooms and whiteboards and everybody gets together and we actually do the implementation. And here comes Ralph Burns raising his hand saying, hey, that's stupid. And what did you call it? You said we shouldn't do an implementation day. Did you say we should do a delegation day?
I said, if you're going to do an implementation, count me out.
Mm,
I think is what I said. And then I said, but if you're going to do a delegation day,
yeah.
count me in.
And that's what it should be. That's the way an entrepreneur and a business owner and I don't want to leave out executives, by the way, because I always think of them as entrepreneurs, right? Like they're entrepreneurial within an organization because they have to think and move and, really drive.
For sure.
Implementation it's not the name of the game. If you're doing the work, you're doing it wrong. The biggest red flag for me, especially for anybody that's in leadership in any of our organizations, is if they take work back. So I come to you, you work for me, and I say, "Hey, Ralph, I need you to do this job," and then you do it, and you come, and you're like, "All right, it's done." Here's where I got, and then I say, "Oh, thanks, man, really appreciate you," and then I take it back. It's a red flag because that just means like you didn't do it exactly the way I wanted you to do it. I feel like I can do it better. I don't want to hurt your feelings, and now all you're ever going to do is produce half-assed work. So you know what, dude? There's an archetype. There's archetypes of delegation. So that's archetype 1. Too nice to coach. Archetype 2 is worse. And I see this very often too, where archetype 2 says change red to blue, change square to circle, change blue to red again. And then they just keep tweaking. And what archetype 2 does is they kill really good employees. Because I used to have this young man who worked for me. His name was Andy Akers. And I'll give Andy a shout out on the show because he was brilliant. He's the best graphic designer I've ever known him in my entire life. He was amazing, true artist. Andy, however, was a little temperamental. And if we had a client I knew Andy had about 3 iterations in him. And the first thing he'd produce for a client was always epic, like Sistine Chapel good. Because Andy would just get so excited. And he'd learn the client, and he'd learn the ethos, and he'd learn the mission, and he'd learn the customer, and he would do a deep dive, and he'd do research, and he'd just sit there in his office sketching. And then, if we were designing a website or a logo or a product, it didn't matter. The first thing he'd produce was epic. The second thing and then the client would say, "Oh, thank you, but I don't like this or I do like that." And then the second iteration would be okay. And by the third iteration, Andy was just phoning it in. He did not give a shit because he was an artist and he'd lost all connection to his art. Now, that's maybe a problem with Andy, and I love him enough to have this conversation with him one-on-one, and we had those talks, and I'm sure he's improved since then. Hopefully, if he hears this, he doesn't feel like I've said anything out of sorts because he really was a very brilliant young man. But we do that to our resources. If you take a really smart person who's really capable and does a really good job the first time, and then you run around and you dick with their shit, and you start to kind of tweak, like the next time you ask them to do something, they're not going to put their heart and soul in it because they're like, you know what? Kasim's going to just sit there and mess around with it anyway. So let me just bring him something that he can mess around with. Whereas if you just said, hey, Andy, run with it. Whatever you think is best is what we're going to ship. Now they actually double down because they're kind of afraid. It's like, oh, well, gosh, if they were going to go public with this, I need to make this as good as it can possibly be. So commit to delegation, commit to allowing it to ship. And it's so funny you said your website, dude. I've been on your website since you said that, just poking around. I think it's awesome. I think I'd be interested what other people think. Go to perpetualtraffic.com/telegram. Check out the Tier 11 site, tier11.com, all spelled out. And let us know because like Ralph is like, oh, I'm not super happy with it. But dude, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't see what you see that's wrong with this. And that's the whole point, right? You want to do the 20% of the work that gets 80% of the results and then just leave the rest of it alone and be happy being imperfect. I used to look at some of those folks, especially when I was a very young man. I'd go to, early stage masterminds, smaller, but still same concept. And I'd see the people that were successful and I'd be like, how are you more successful than I am? Because they weren't any more put together. They weren't any more polished. They sure as shit weren't any more organized. Super diligent, super disciplined, and very habit driven, but they were making way more money. And it took me way too long to realize they ship and I don't. I'm trying to make everything perfect. And they're just like, oh, get it out there. Let's see what happens, and that's not a paradigm for everybody. But if you really want to grow and scale, and if you want to do cool stuff too, by the way, because if you're trying to be innovative, you have to ship. You have to. If you wait till it's done, it's always too late. So anyway, I spent enough time on that. I'm happy to dive into nuts and bolts, like specifics. Is that a good use of our time?
Yeah, I think it is. I think your graphic designer example is a great one because if you delegate, then take it away or nitpick, you kill their independence. and then they eventually just get tired and leave.
Right.
And you might lose a tremendous resource as a result of it.
Dude, or worse, they
So,
stay and just don't, and just phone it in.
and phone
Yeah,
it
they're
in,
cashing
which
a
is
check and they're just like, here you go. Here's the best I can do in order to not get fired.
yeah,
And we've all had
absolutely.
those
I'll do the
employees. They
minimal.
do everything exactly
Yep.
right. In a performance review,
Yep.
you can point to nothing wrong, but I'm like, you know what? Your heart's not in it. And if their heart's not in it, you did something wrong as a leader, right? Like you didn't.
It's on you.
Yes.
As the leader.
That's exactly right.
Yep. It's not their fault. I mean, it's everybody's fault at some point in time, but
the
you as the leader have to
responsibility
take
rests with you.
responsibility.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we've explained the importance, explained sort of the philosophy, some of the pitfalls. How do you do it though? So speak to the person that's still in that mindset of no. I know what they're saying probably is right, but I haven't done it yet because of this, that, like, how do you do it step by step? If you were to like sort of teach somebody the art of delegation, we'll leave some frameworks, obviously, in the show notes. There's something from Michael Hyatt, which I always sort of loved.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
About delegation. He's brilliant. But like, go through this for us here. Like, how do you actually do it? And so people can do it in baby steps.
So if you're watching this, you can go to perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube to watch the visual. I'll explain it well enough to where that won't be necessary if you're in the car or something. But here's I call it my horribly painful delegation exercise. Take a week, a normal week. So not a travel week, not a special week, but take a normal week in your business life and track every single task that takes you 10 minutes to complete, 10 minutes or longer. And 10 minutes is really important, especially for executives and entrepreneurs, because we multitask so much that you can't, if you just looked at your calendar, that's not a representation of what actually happened. Now, if you want bonus points, hire somebody to follow you and do this. And this, by the way, is not an insurmountable ask. Go to TaskRabbit, go to Craigslist, find some college kid and say, you're going to follow me around with a notepad and a stopwatch. And you write down everything. If I stop to take a phone call, it's like, oh, Kasim spoke on the phone with Ralph from 10:20 to 10:32. And then if I'm sending a message, like, oh, he's whatever, like attending to my email, jumping into this meeting, I had to drive from here to there. Put every single one of the tasks that takes you 10 minutes or longer for a week into a Google Sheet. And then assign them to one of the following 4 categories. There's 4 columns. I stole this from a company called InvestorFuse. They were a CRM in the real estate space, a really strong referral partner for us. And we went to their mastermind and they presented on this. Dan Schwartz, I think, the CEO, presented on it and it blew my mind. There's 4 columns of work. 4 columns of work. The first column is $5 an hour work. You call this your assembly line work. This is work literally anybody can do. You can push this to anyone with a pulse. So this is data entry, copying, pasting, following established processes, responding from a script, basic customer service. If you're of reasonable intelligence, you should be able to do anything here. This is $5 an hour work. Here's what's really interesting is everybody's like, oh, I don't do much of that. I might do a little bit of that every now and again, but I most of my days not spent in $5 an hour work. Track your time, and you will be appalled. Ralph Rudy Burns, shocked and appalled at how much $5 an hour work you do. I've been gone for 2 weeks. I left my home. I was traveling for Driven and then for Front No Dads. And when I came back, there was a stack of mail on my desk. I spent an hour and a half yesterday open mail. That's $5 an hour work. Opening and sorting mail is $5 an hour work.
Yeah.
I bill at $2,000 an hour, dude. It cost me $3,000 to open my mail yesterday. So column 1,
I haven't been home in almost 3 weeks, and my wife says there's a stack of mail for you. I'm like, oh my God, keep going.
Yeah. So that's column 1. Assign anything that lands in column 1, assign it to that category. And now you know how much, what percentage of your week is spent in column 1. Column 1 is the easy, no-brainer delegation stuff. Very often, the only reason we're not delegating column 1 is because we don't have a who. And you should have a virtual assistant. You should also have an in-person assistant. And this is a no-brainer. Just take your hourly and benchmark it against the hourly that your assistant would cost. If an in-person assistant charges $20 an hour and you bill out at $150 an hour, you actually make $150 an hour, let's say, or you make $50 an hour. If you make $40 an hour, if you make $21 an hour, that wins, right? If you pay $20 to save time so you can make $21 an hour, you're now net positive. So
that's right.
Column 1, assembly line work. Column 2, skilled labor. This is work that requires specialty knowledge or attention to detail. So this is like management and supervision, client management, maintenance and repairs, basic creativity, basic thought leadership, basic sales. So if column 1 is $5 an hour work, column 2 is $50 an hour work. This is something where, you kind of need somebody who knows what they're doing. This is the trap for most solopreneurs. Solopreneurs, small business owners, people that are kind of running their own businesses, they spend 80, 90% of their time here. They get good at outsourcing column 1. They have 1 or 2 employees that they dump that kind of garbage on. And then they spend all their time in column 2. And if you are in column 2 for 51% of your week or more, you don't own a business, you own a job. Or you're not an executive. You're an employee with some executive functions. Right. An executive can't live here. A business owner can't live here. An entrepreneur can't live here. That's column 2. Column 3, $500 an hour work. This is superstar work. This is highly valuable, sensitive, leverageable, scalable, software engineering, negotiations, high-end sales, attorneys. God forgive me for saying, because I hate all attorneys, except for my attorneys. I love you, Ryan Petit. Offer design, process creation, high-end creativity, high-end thought leadership. This is the stuff that like your best employees can do. This is the best of the best, irreplaceable. And I'm using air quotes because we all know that's not really true, but just where the Einstein quote, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. Well, when you find where it is this fish can swim, you take your employees and you put them there. Column 3 is where entrepreneurs think they've made it. They think they've found their calling, and it's a trap because they don't realize that there's somewhere else to go. Column 3 is what you want to hire for. This is my highest use in life is finding people that I can put in their columns 3. Yvonne Boonin, my CTO at Solutions 8. Leandra, my COO at Solutions 8. Emma Rainville, the COO at Driven Mastermind. Dude, totally. Oh my God. Emma is a kill. She's the most competent human I've ever known on so many levels of analysis, and just in the perfect position, the right person on the right seat in the right bus. And she just makes the whole thing so stress-free and easy for me. So finding people,
I'm a little bit afraid of her.
Dude, that's actually what you need. Her job is to babysit spoiled multimillionaire entrepreneurs. You know what I mean?
I'm afraid to ever ask her a question for like a slap down. It's so funny, which speaks to her authority and her, like, she is a superstar.
She's a superstar.
And I don't want to waste $500 an hour on some dumb question.
Yeah. Well, and dude, she's so multifaceted too, because you can see her when she needs to switch into love and empathy, she can do exactly that. When she needs to be, tough love. So finding those superstars, and everybody has at least one. You wouldn't be in business if you didn't have at least one. My hope for you, listener, is that you're not it. If you're your own superstar, then you're forever shackled. That's column 3. Column 4 is this is $5,000 an hour work. And this is where we get hyperbolic, right? Because there's no such thing. Nobody actually pays $5,000 an hour. This is the Neo category.
It's a metaphor.
Exactly right. This is where it's just like, it's invaluable. You can't put a price to it. And Neo is, you're the only person in the world capable of this. This is when we get into artistry. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Picasso, Van Gogh, Spielberg, you. And you might think and this is where everybody needs to really spend some time recognizing why they're in business. Because if you thought to yourself, well, come on, dude, I'm never going to be a column 4 person. You're so wrong. You are so wrong. You are so capable as a human being of producing something that nobody else is capable of producing. And if you don't believe that, I pray for you that you spend some time examining what it is and who it is that you are, because we all have it inside us to produce something nobody else can produce. Everybody has that kernel of greatness, but you have to believe it and you have to cultivate it and you have to go after it. And we know that. Ralph, I love people. I'm phenomenal at finding and cultivating people. It's where my column 4 is. And everybody has, and maybe I'm not as good as Van Gogh. Maybe I'm not as good at cultivating people as Van Gogh was at painting. Who gives a shit? That's where I sit in my column 4. And nobody's ever going to be as good as me. And for me, and what I want to accomplish. And you have that. And everybody listening has the ability to move into column 4. And if you can do that, and we've all seen the people that are in business in their column 4. Perry Belcher is a really good example of this. When Perry reads, listens, watches, researches, when he learns, Perry not just makes money, but he makes other people money. Perry sits in his bathtub every morning. This is a true story. Every morning, Perry gets into his bathtub for about an hour and a half,
I love
and he
this.
watches YouTube videos. And dude, he will call me and just start talking about the amazing shit he's thought of because he alchemizes all of this learning. That's his column 4. If you're in your column 3, that's okay, because that's the highest function accessible within the confines of what could be considered purely academic in approach. So the purely academic approach can get to column 3. To get to column 4, you do need some spirit, some soul, some heart. Call it whatever you want. Some mission, drive, whatever. But the point is to move from column 3 to column 4. At a minimum, you should do literal 0 in column 1, literal 0 in column 2. And that's the art of delegation. Once you've identified all of the tasks that live inside of column 1, go find the person that you're going to delegate these tasks to. And you ask yourself 3 questions, by the way, and delegation is the last one. The first question is can I eliminate this? I spent an hour and a half yesterday opening mail, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Why am I opening this mail?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so stupid, but I want to know. Like, I went to the urgent care because I had strep throat, and they sent me a bill for $60. And if I don't open that letter, at some point they're going to call me, right? They're going to get their $60. Why am I opening this? Why am I spending my time adhering to people's processes their way? Screw that. I didn't tell you could mail me. So can I eliminate this is question number 1. And you can eliminate so much more than you think you can. And I'd ask people to be ruthless in their elimination. And dude, actually, I hope, God forgive me, I hope you don't mind the example I'm about to use. I'm just going to lob it over the fence, and then we'll contend with it together. I love Perpetual Traffic dearly, deeply. I love you. You're one of my best friends. I love the time we spend together. But I don't have as much time as I would like, and it's not an inconsequential expenditure of time. And so you take this thing that I love to do and that I've gotten a bunch of value to do, and yet it landed in my elimination pile. I looked it up, by the way, while you and I were talking. I've been doing it for 3 years. My very first episode was April 29th, 2021. And so I just reached a point, and it wasn't new. I didn't sneak attack you. I've been talking about it for 6 months or so, where I felt like this didn't serve me to the same degree, and I'd like to revise my approach. And that's hard. You have to be ruthless in your elimination for you, because it's always a balance of risks. And then the question becomes, well, what is this costing you? So question 1, can I eliminate this? I hope I didn't just offend you.
No, because we've talked about this.
Because
That's one of the reasons why you're moving on. It's like there's also some changes within, your business and your mindset as far as like what's important. Like 3 years ago, this was, a 3-4 activity. It's not anymore.
Oh, dude.
It's worked its
3
way
years.
down.
That's what's interesting. This 100x to my business. That's the other thing that's really funny,
100%.
Ralph, and it's a fun departure. I don't want to be nerd famous anymore. I actually don't want my businesses to rely on my notoriety, because it's not a scalable model. And so all the businesses that I build from now on, I want my acquisition channels to not be reliant on me, which is another one of the reasons that I feel like I need to make a departure, because I have to be able to do that and learn that. So anyway, that said, question 1 is, can I eliminate this? And you can eliminate so much more than you think you can. My favorite example of all time of elimination is creative. I built a creative agency without doing creative. We were running Google ads, and we were bad at ads. And so I just decided, hey, we're not going to do it. We're going to get really, really, really good at the technical. And we were massively profitable, and the creative was the most expensive part of it. And I got to cut it right out. So can I eliminate this? Question 2 is, can I automate this? And the answer is becoming yes more and more every single day. AI is amazing. Zapier is amazing. Automation is amazing. And there's so much that you can automate. If you get emails that you constantly archive, go set up a Gmail filter. If you want to get really good at automation, go learn Gmail's filters. Start there because it's the simplest. It's the most basic. It's if this, then that, except when. And every microsecond you spend processing emails is such a waste of time and waste of life. So go learn Gmail's filtering, and then that will be the launching pad from which you start to automate everything in your life. And I hope you don't mind me saying this, Ralph. When I started with Perpetual Traffic, I built the entire booking system for PT. I had it built within a month of me being at PT, and I did it for me because I was
That's
like,
right.
I am never going to be on another one of these email strings where somebody
Yeah.
goes, "Are you available at this time on this day?" And and then it's back and forth and up and down, and so there's so
Yeah.
much that we can automate. And then the last question is, can I delegate this? So eliminate it first, automate it second, and delegate it third. And if you don't have somebody to delegate to, go find them. Go find somebody. And my little soapbox is find somebody international. If it can be a virtual position, there's and you don't feel like you can find the person domestically, which I understand. It's hard. The domestic labor market is really hard. It's hard to compete. Dude, folks in international markets are so ravenous for work. The financial arbitrage is unbelievable. You'd be changing their life because you can afford to pay them way more than they make in their local market, and they crush at tasks like this. So eliminate, automate, then delegate, and that's the nuts and bolts of how I'd get started. I think I'll pause there and see if I bored you to death.
The question then becomes, and I agree with all of that, is what's my first step? And so, for example, I like the eliminate, like literally like writing out like the things, or once you get that summary of all the things that you do, what are the things that you don't need to do that you are doing that you feel are important, but actually aren't really that important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like every little task, I would rate it as far as importance and impact on your business and impact on your life.
Right.
So, for example, I would actually throw in $5 an hour work at times in order to enhance my quality of life. Like, I just so happen I'm one of those sick individuals that actually enjoys mowing the lawn. It's $5 an hour work.
Mm-hmm.
It's $25 to $30 an hour work or $40 an hour work. Although I haven't been home and I've had the landscaping company do it the last 3 weeks. But the point is I actually enjoy that. So you got to look at that too. So there is some stuff, like the dumb stuff I find. My wife always says this: why the hell does Bill Gates wash the dishes?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's $5 an hour work and he thinks of things while he's actually doing it. So answering emails and trying to schedule appointments back and forth, that's a waste of your time. You're not getting any sort of relaxation or any sort of tangential benefit from it. But mowing the lawn, I actually get some of my best ideas, like working out, taking a walk, whatever it is, like take a shower, like all those things, like those are regular. You can't outsource taking a shower, unfortunately. You can outsource exercising, which
it'd get a
I've
little
tried.
awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried to do it, but unfortunately, you have to do that yourself. So there is that part to it. But I would say, like, rate it on an importance scale and then figure out what you can check off first. If you come away from this episode with a couple of checks and say, all right, I'm going to eliminate that, or I'm going to figure out automate. Like, my inbox was a disaster until I got SaneBox. Like, now SaneBox, like, it saves me hours per week. And now, thanks to your talk, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should have the admin like prioritize like my most important emails when I'm away, so I don't have to be constantly looking. So it's like that just saved me another hour, like just listening to your talk 2 weeks ago. So it's like there's constant improvements you can do, like all of those little things that you're doing. Like responding to emails is not your job. I used to think that was like there's a task. I know we all do it. Like, responding to comments on your socials, like, do you have to do that? Is that something that maybe if you're running a company, you can have your team do? There's so many different things, but like when you're prioritizing exactly what you're saying or having that, that college student, well, you can pay like $15 an hour to do that for you. Like then prioritizing, and then that's like the first step. So take that lowest hanging fruit part and you can do that on your own. The big question is like when you get into the delegate side, And I think we try to, give people automation tools here throughout, the course of the show here, and we'll continue to do that. But on the delegation side, like, then where do you go? Like, you and I both have admins. Our top teams, like, they have their own admins. I haven't tried to schedule a meeting and I can't remember when, but like the delegation part, like what would be the next step for that as far as resources where you can sort of, maybe this is time for you to pitch, some of the stuff that you're doing right now. Like where can they get that? What's the easy button on the delegation side of the equation?
So a couple of notes there. First, I don't think you need to hire. If you have any employees, start with your existing staff. Because if you're learning to delegate and you go hire somebody, they're going to be your training wheels and you're going to probably mess them up. So take a member of your staff right now and assign them. And you, I love that you said this, Ralph. You said, my job isn't tasks, it's results. Go think of an end result that you want. And you know what? I'm going to do this live. You ready? This will be tons of fun. So I'm going to pull up the messaging app that I use with my EA. And I'm actually messaging her right now via voice. And you guys you're gonna hear me message her a real project that I wanted to accomplish, and I've been noodling on, and I'm gonna lob this in her direction. You ready?
What app are you using, by the way, for the voice?
So that's it. I'm gonna get to that because I have a whole theory on this. So let me. I'm gonna message her, and then I'll explain to you my SOP when it comes to interfacing with my EA.
I interrupted your flow. Go ahead.
That's okay. All right, here we go. Hey, Josefina, favor to ask of you. We just bought a mini storage facility in South Carolina, as you know, and I really want to get good at filling it up. We're going to buy many, many more. That's one of my focuses with this new business, obviously. And so I don't want to treat this mini storage facility as though it's a standalone business. I want to treat it as though it's the seed that will grow many subsequent businesses. And so my ask is this. Go to school on self-storage marketing and look at other self-storage facilities, mini storage facilities, and see what they do. Like, how are they positioning themselves? Are they running Facebook ads? Are they having a Craigslist? How are they getting online reviews? What do their reviews look like? What are people saying that's good? What are people saying that's bad? Who are the educators and the thought leaders in the space? What templates and offers do they have? Who are the vendors in the space? I want to get really creative. I don't want to just go usual suspects. Like, if you owned a self-storage facility and you wanted to grow it and you wanted the best customers that you could get with the highest retention, how would you approach that? So think of yourself as you're getting an MBA in self-storage, and then build me a project plan. Like, how are we going to do the SEO? How are we going to do the Facebook? How are we going to do the creative? How are we going to do the branding? How are we going to do the intake? How are we going to do communication? How do we communicate with people, period? When they first get a storage facility, what email should they get? What text message should they get? On a recurring basis, what messaging should they get? As a follow-up or retention, if there's an annual contract, what should we be doing? I just want to go like top to bottom, start to finish, because my goal would be to own hundreds of these things. And I want to have a mechanism that allows me to, once I've purchased a facility, fill it up. And then I want the people who are in our facilities to feel loved. And I'm using that word with intention. I want them to feel loved on, like we actually really care. And if you think about a storage facility, like we're housing people's most important stuff. It's so important they can't throw it away. This is stuff they do not have room for. And so they're paying extra money to put it somewhere. These are like grandma's pictures and heirlooms and things that are just really critical. And so it's not just four walls and a ceiling that they're renting. They're renting peace of mind. And I want them to feel like we take that seriously, we respect and value them, and that we're going to care for their keepsakes. So have that in mind. Build the project plan for me. With the idea that we're going to build this out to scale. And we may even turn this, it's for me internally, but we could turn this into a whole business unto itself. So I appreciate you doing that. Let me know if you have any questions. You're awesome. That was 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And I don't think she's going to do this perfectly, but I'll tell you what, she's going to do it way better than I have time to do it right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And she'll find the vendor. I hope I said that. She'll find the vendor. She'll, kind of crack the code, and then she and I can go through it, and I can be like, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is bad, dig deeper here. And that's what most people do with their EA is they say, hey, can you schedule an appointment with Ralph Tuesday at 4? Well, you just did that. You know what I mean? Like you can ask Siri to do that. That's not what you want an EA for. Go get a result and send a result right now. And if you're listening to this episode, pause it right now. Send a voice message, send a voice memo to a member of your team with the result. Hey, I want to launch this new product. I want to enter this new market. I want to figure out how to scale this thing. I want to solve this problem. Do me a favor, go figure that out for me. And a lot of people, by the way, if you haven't delegated before, are going to be a little freaked out the first time. So, there's some growing pains to be had. But
Right.
here's what's cool is once you get people that can do this type of shit for you, oh my God, dude. Like the 2 minutes and 25-second message I just sent this young lady who's brilliant, by the way. She's a professional psychologist, lives in Argentina. She's a phenomenal resource. If she executes on that well enough, that's a whole business, Ralph. I could just sell marketing services to mini storage facilities, of which there are 60,000 in the United States, 50% of which are owned by mom and pops. There's been very little consolidation in the space as compared to other real estate asset classes. So bam, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and I've got a whole new business on my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I'm going to leave a link in the show notes here. I don't know if you're unconsciously conscious of this or consciously unconscious of it, is that there's so many different levels of delegation. Like you're doing what Michael Hyatt calls is like the level 3, is like do all the research, put the plan together, then we'll come back and then we'll figure out like a discussion point as far as next steps go, which is a pretty high level of delegation. And I think in the hierarchy, and I'll leave this, we're not going to make the show all about this, but it's like there's even bigger levels. Like once they understand the business, there's literally the level of like the highest, which is level 5, which is act independently. It's like, I need a new website. Literally, that's all I told to Tom and our marketing team. And I'm glad you like it. I'm nitpicking, but they also got it done literally without any guidance. For me, that was my end result. And that's like the highest level, but they also have to know you in order to be able to sort of reach that. One level back from that is like, okay, get me all the information like you just did with Josefina. Josefina. Make a decision on it, do all the research, make a decision, tell me what to do. That's like that next level 4. You did like a level 3, which is like, pull it all together, then I'll review it. So as you train your people in specific ways, like you can get even higher and higher levels of productivity. And you're talking about like starting a brand new business here. So I wouldn't imagine like level 4, level 5 would be even in the cards, because she just doesn't know. Like this is obviously something that it's going to require some more research, but you're doing probably 90% of the work by just delegating that one task and that 2 minute and 22 second voice memo. You see what I mean? Like there's ways to like, there's all types of levels of it. And we're going through like, you're more advanced at this, but I'm saying like at a basic level, if you just start to do like the eliminate and automate, you're basically at level 1. You know what I mean? And then you sort of progress through the whole thing. We'll leave a checklist on that, which I sort of use as a guiding light whenever I'm trying to teach people how to use delegation, and it's worked wonders. When you have a bunch of people that you can go level 5 on, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, dude, the level 5 people those are business partners.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The thing that I really like to do, and I did that in the voice message, is I like to give a very strong why. Because if I said, go build out a project plan for marketing mini storage, who gives a shit? But if I explain, and I believe every word of that, by the way, it's like, hey, this is so important. Let me tell you why this is important. Like that's critical.
That is and that was my second point to this, is that I think that's an undervalued tool, like hack in delegation. If you get people to understand the why behind why you're asking, like all of a sudden they're that much more motivated. Like you talked about grandma's heirlooms. You talked about affecting people's lives. You told about like we could really make an impact in the world. Like now that delegation isn't just like, oh, Kasim wants me to do some friggin' thing. Well, now I have a vision as to why, and Simon Sinek talks about, start with why, and then obviously go to the how and the what. The point is that you gave her that why within the delegation, which I think is very important, very overlooked. And that's how you keep people engaged and feeling like what they're doing actually really matters. It's not all about making Kasim like couple $100,000 or $1 million or whatever it is. It's about really making impact in the world, or whatever the why is for your business. And I think it's important to let people in on that. Otherwise, they're not following you. And I think that's leadership right there.
Everybody should be aligned on the same vision. Everybody.
And you also said something about you appreciate them at the end too, which I've noticed you always do. And it's really important. You are not like the king talking from his throne. You know, you're a guy who's asking for her help, and you also appreciate what she's doing, and you're giving her a reason why you want this to happen. That's some good stuff right there.
Thanks, man.
So, which I think crystallizes your personality just in general, which is what has made you such a tremendous co-host here at Perpetual Traffic, bringing it
full circle.
Bringing it full circle. So, this has been tremendous. I've got a Red Sox game I've got to go to. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Like, this is classic delegation. Yep. I'm letting the business run itself today. I'm going out with a vendor. He's taking me out for, Sox game, dinner, Bruins tonight. It's a good day. Like, couldn't do it without delegation.
I love that. What I would do is I would delegate the Red Sox game because I don't like football.
You're like, yeah, I don't follow basketball, is what you'd probably say.
Well, I just said I don't like football. That was you got to my joke.
Oh, I didn't hear that. It's one of your funnier lines. All right, well, make sure, let's get a delegation conversation going on over in Telegram. This is so important, and yes, it doesn't have anything to do with traffic. That's all right.
Dude, delegate your traffic.
Delegate your traffic.
11. Say tier 11. I need traffic.
Yeah, there's always that as an option. perpetualtraffic.com/Telegram. Of course, Kasim did do the screen share here, so that is on our YouTube channel, perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube, of course. And make sure that you leave a rating wherever you're listening. Maybe, a nice farewell thank you to Kasim in the review. That would be pretty cool. Like, love you, Kasim, for all your conspiracy and philosophical rants and traffic insights and marketing insights and geniosity, which is, by the way, a term that we made up here at Perpetual Traffic. Something like that would go a long way with a 5-star rating, and it allows us to reach more entrepreneurs and business owners to help them grow and scale and ultimately achieve their vision as an organization. So that's why we do this whole thing. I posted that on LinkedIn the other day. A couple of people that I met, they're like, I've been listening to Perpetual Traffic for 3 years and it's changed my life. Kind of crazy when you think about it, but that's the kind of impact that really matters here. And that's what we're trying to do here. It's not all about capitalism, making money. Yes, you need to make the money, but you have to have a why. And our why is to help you all, listeners, help scale and grow, and obviously increase your competency as professionals and as humans in this world. So make sure you do leave a rating and a review. It really does help us. And all links and everything that we mentioned, including Kasim's first show, which I did find,
nice,
will be in the show notes over at perpetualtraffic.com. And dude, it's been awesome. I know we got one more show to go, but I'm going to miss you as a regular co-host here. It's goodbye for now, farewell. No, what is it? Farewell for now, goodbye for... I don't even know what that expression is. You're going to be coming back. So we've got one more show, and then Kasim's going to take a little bit of a hiatus. And Ms. Lauren Petrullo is going to be the next co-host, as if nobody could guess that one. So we're waiting to the very, very, very end here to mention that. But pretty excited to have her as the new
I'm so excited
co-host.
for her. She's such a freaking firecracker. I gotta say, I never should have given her my cell phone though. Like the text messages that I get
blows up our text.
Oh my god! Yeah. And I'm not a texter, so she'll send me this. I feel so bad. She sends me a novel, and I'm just like, thank you, and I don't want her to think I'm being.
And it's usually really smart too.
It's so valuable. But no, man, I mean, she's so multifaceted and she's so brilliant and she's so much more than just a traffic person. She's an entrepreneur. She owns multiple businesses. She's a phenomenal speaker. She lacks a little in the humor category, but she'll have you to buttress. So you can't have it all,
Ralph. Straight man for her. No, she still does think that she's famous. We'll have the the Perpetual Traffic listener. So, anyway, all resources and show notes are .com. On behalf of my awesome co-host Kasim Aslam.
Peace.
Until next show, see ya.